Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt O'Donnell. It is Sunday, October 10, 2021, and thanks for joining us here on Inside Story. They put profits before people. They are politically dividing us. They are making our children depressed, and they have no plans of changing. We have heard these claims before about social media companies like Facebook, which is the largest as they own Instagram and WhatsApp. But for the first time, someone who once worked at the social behemoth made these disturbing claims right in front of Congress. Frances Haugen, who was a product manager with Facebook between 2019 and this year, testified this week that Mark Zuckerberg and his engineers know how to make their platform safer, but refuse to do it because it will cost the nearly trillion-dollar company more profits. Haugen also said Zuckerberg is fully aware about the unpopularity of Facebook amongst the 40 and under crowd, and so the company pulls the levers to increase engagement among the younger users of Instagram. This includes, again, according to Haugen, making children addicted to their gram feeds by resorting to showing content promoting eating disorders, general misinformation, and hatred of others. Zuckerberg, who also had to deal with an unrelated systems outage of all Facebook services just the day before, responded with a lengthy Facebook post that evening. He said the coverage of the whistleblower hearing does not reflect the company we know, that he cares deeply about safety, well-being, and mental health, and that most of Haugen's claims don't make any sense. Zuckerberg also asked if social media were as responsible for polarizing society as some people claim, then why are we seeing polarization increase in the U.S. while it stays flat or declines in many countries with just as heavy use of social media around the world? We have two guests on Inside Story to talk about this morning. Dana Schmidt is a vice president of strategy at Slice Communications, a Philadelphia marketing and communications company. And Dana works with companies to help increase brand value and tell a story among social media platforms. Also, Stephanie Humphrey, a technology and lifestyle contributor at ABC News. She's also author of the book, I love the title, Don't Let Your Digital Footprint Kick You in the Butt, which is a how-to book on using social media in a constructive way. Dana and Stephanie, thanks for joining us in Inside Story.
Thanks so much for having me.
Stephanie, let me start with you, and I want to get both of your reaction. Just throw out one thing that was really surprising to you about Haugen's testimony to Congress.
Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot that was surprising about it. I mean, I think just the idea that she had assembled all of this data, Facebook's own data. I think that was the most surprising part about it, is that the receipts she had, if you will, were Facebook's own data and research. So that made it very, very difficult for them to then turn around and dispute what she was saying. So I was very impressed with how much data she had collected, and a little bit disappointed, but not surprised at the fact that Facebook did already know these things and had decided to ignore them.
Dana, most surprising, what was your main reaction to this?
I do agree with Stephanie. It's sad to say it wasn't that shocking. I think most of us assumed that this was happening, not just those of us who follow the business of social media, but anyone who uses it on a daily basis has felt those feelings of frustration or jealousy or even harmful thoughts when you're scrolling through your feed. It's troubling, to say the least, that, this insider at Facebook confirmed that, Facebook knew all along. And I think the real tragedy is that they knew it was affecting the youngest, most vulnerable audience, the teenagers who are especially spending time on Instagram. That's incredibly troubling to know that they had that information and did not act on it. But it's not entirely shocking as users of the platform who feel those same feelings.
Yeah, I had the same reaction as both of you. Not surprising. We've known all these things. It's just that now it's being put before Congress. So, Stephanie, what's the next step forward, whether it comes from what we should do as users, what should Facebook do, Mark Zuckerberg, or what should Congress do?
So I don't see Facebook doing much of anything, if at all. You read part of Mark Zuckerberg's statement. He is very adamant that this is not the Facebook that he knows. So I don't see them actually doing anything. I think the onus right now is on Congress. I mean, there is going to need to be some sort of legislation passed to prevent this from happening again. We haven't seen any significant internet regulation from Congress for almost 25 years, or if not close to 30 years. So I think the first thing that they could do is start with Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That section right now absolves social media platforms for the content that is posted there. I think we need to modify that to hold these platforms a little bit more accountable for the stuff that they put out there and the type of content that they have. I think that would go a long way to start the process of reforming how these platforms operate.
And as you know, Section 230 is the difference between us and Facebook, where we as a television station are responsible for what we put on the air. Facebook is absolved of whatever happens or what's on the site, which is why you see such crazy things there. Dana, what do you think the next step should be?
I mean, it's rare in this day and age to see the level of bipartisan support from you just listening to the Congress hearing. People really feel strongly on both sides that something should be done. And I agree, some action should be taken. I'm a little nervous about the conversations that are being had about breaking up Facebook, because I don't think Facebook and Instagram alone are the problem. We would be naive to say if we got rid of Facebook and Instagram and broke them up, that there would be no more harmful content on the internet. I mean, any social media platform rewards popular content, whether it's, a promotion that you're announcing on LinkedIn or doing a dance on TikTok. The type of harmful content that's on Facebook and Instagram exists there and will live in those spaces if we just remove those other two behemoths. But I do think there's something we can do more as individuals. I mean, we do have agency in this matter, and rather than wait for our elected officials or Facebook themselves to make a change and try to fix this, I think we can start to be a little more aware about how we're using the platform too, because there's still a lot of good that can come out of using social media if we're aware and more present when we're using it, and using the tools at our disposal to check in, to notice how much time we're spending on these apps, and also checking to see what kind of data these apps have already collected on us and how can we change our settings and be more aware of that.
Yeah, I always tell my children, Dana, if you post something that's always positive, you don't have to worry about what you put on social media. I always think that's a good standard to try and keep. Stephanie, let's say that Mark Zuckerberg is a good person and that he will work within the company to try and, people are laughing, that he truly will come across these things and want to fix this, and that he won't use his company for evil purposes. What would happen if Dr. Evil was the head of this company and had the voting shares that Zuckerberg had and the power that he has? What would happen if a truly evil person had the tools of Facebook within the company?
Well, I think we're seeing what could happen if a truly evil person had those tools, because what a lot of what Frances Haugen talked about was the idea that Facebook was deliberately promoting inflammatory information. She had statistics that showed that they only catch 3 to 5% of hate speech, and they catch less than 1% of violent speech and insurrectionist speech. And they're the best in the world at content moderation. And so you have to think that that's a choice, that they're only choosing to collect, to flag that much information. And they have other tools like meaningful social interactions where they deliberately highlight things that they think will go viral. So we've seen already with the situation in Myanmar a couple years ago, situation in Ethiopia right now, governments are actually changing the way that they deliver information on Facebook, because they know how these algorithms work, and because they know that these algorithms want to highlight those things that are going to incite people and create anger around people. So they are already, even without any malicious intent necessarily, sort of changing the conversation globally around politics.
Dana, I don't know if you ever come across someone who actually works at Facebook, but if you did, and this person was concerned about what is happening with the company and doesn't know what to do, what would you tell this person?
I think that what we just saw was an incredible act of bravery, someone coming forward and speaking their truth and showing their receipts. And I think that if other people have that type of information, it's really important to be truthful and transparent. And in Mark Zuckerberg's internal memo, he talked about the importance of transparency. So that's something that I really think the employees there need to live up to. And it's definitely something that's come up in conversations with, ad reps that I've spoken with over the course of some time, not directly, but it's something that's on everyone's mind at the company.
Yeah, all three of us, our business, and they're all different, but we have to be on social media. And there are people in certain countries, they can't get on the internet without Facebook. It's just the way things work out there. And Stephanie, your book talks a lot about how, this idea we all have profiles online, whether we like it or not, whether we're online or not. And how do you approach things now that we have this lens of what happened with Congress and what may happen moving forward? How do we, as people, take care of our social footprints?
It's all about intention, really. It really, you really do have to approach these platforms with the intention that you want to create a positive experience. Everybody does not necessarily have that intention, but that mindfulness, I think, is where we all need to start. And then you sort of think about that idea of personal brand. It sounds very cliche, but that is what you are building with that digital footprint. So anytime you touch a keyboard, you are building a personal brand for yourself that is either positive or negative, and you get to control that. So approaching these platforms, even if you're not necessarily an influencer or trying to use the platforms to create revenue or anything like that, there are still consequences and real ramifications for the way that you behave online. So it really is a mindset shift for all of us, really, to approach how we post and how much time we spend on the platforms with intention and mindfulness.
I went on Facebook to ask some viewer thoughts on this. Facebook, yep. Viewer comments
The
here.
irony.
Real quick. Facebook is dangerous to our world as a whole. Another person. Facebook is like a mirror. Don't blame it for how you look. Another. I'm leery of whistleblowers. Did she bring any of these issues up to the company officers? And then finally, I am contemplating deleting my Facebook account. Danny, you deal with companies all the time, and I'm sure you run into some where leery, like, I don't want to jump into this cesspool of what. How do you help companies negotiate with the negativity, but with the positivity of growing brands and advertising and such for free?
Mm-hmm. We all know the negative side effects of using social media, obviously. I don't think we talk about the positive side as much. And at its functional core, social media is about people connecting with one another. And so we always bring the conversation back to that. Let's talk about the other humans on the other side of the screen that you're trying to communicate with. And the people who are using the platforms themselves have such a great capacity to do good. We can't really rely on the platforms themselves to do good. I think back to like a month ago, there was a single Instagrammer who raised millions, literally millions of dollars in a matter of hours for a rescue mission in Afghanistan. And it was a complete grassroots movement done through GoFundMe that was really promoted through Instagram. And that's the kind of community engagement and involvement that we want to promote, we want to see more of. So I try to rely on those really good examples of what social media can accomplish, both at that macro level, but also at, a local level. And that can be an artist or a creative person really finding a home on Instagram and finding their community. It can be a small business owner who's able to actually connect with the right customers and solve real problems. So those kinds of good things can still happen, but I feel like you need to approach it with the mindset of you are using the tools you are given to create something, not just passively scrolling.
Sure. That's a great reminder. Final question for both of you. Facebook is 17 years old. It can drive. It can't drink yet. Stephanie, what happens when Facebook turns 30 years old? What do you see in the future?
That's a great question. I see a lot of artificial intelligence. I see a lot of well, they just released a new pair of spectacles where there's a video camera in the glasses frame, and the information goes straight there. So I see a lot more of that integration where the connection between you and the platform becomes even more automatic. I think, at some point we will just be able to think our thoughts, and they'll show up and appear on Facebook or some other platform. Mark Zuckerberg's already talked about this idea of the metaverse, where physical reality, virtual reality, and augmented reality all kind of coexist together. So I really do. I don't see the scenario where there is no social media in 30 years. I see a scenario where we are fully integrated into the internet and into the online space in a way that we can't even imagine right now.
And final thought from you, Dana. Facebook, about 13 years from now, where is it?
I mean, I agree with Stephanie that we will be fully integrated. Social media isn't going anywhere. I think wearable tech, the voice command tech that we see with something like Alexa or Google Home, obviously Facebook will go into that territory and expand. It's very much already a part of our lives. I hope that when Facebook turns 30, as users, we've evolved into, better digital citizens, are a little more aware, and are really using the tools that the social media platforms give us to use them to our advantage.
Hopefully not another season of Black Mirror. Dana Schmidt, Slice Communications, Stephanie Humphrey, tech and lifestyle expert. Great discussion. Thanks to both of you for being on Inside Story.
Thank you
so much.
And thank you for watching. Hope that this adds to your own discussion about social media and how to make it more of a positive experience than a negative one. I'm Matt O'Donnell. That's Inside Story for this week. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you Monday morning on Action News at 4 a.m.